You won't see them coming, and by the time you hear them, it's already too late. In the early hours of June 2nd, 2025, something moved silently across the skies of the Middle East. A fleet of jet-black bombers, invisible to radar and cloaked in silence, swept toward Yemen with a mission no one saw, and few even believed had happened. But when the explosions began, there was no denying it. This is the story of the B-2 Spirit strike that changed the battlefield overnight. A ghost attack from the sky so calculated, it redefined how modern warfare is waged. Stay to the end to discover the island base no one talks about, and why this one mission may be the opening act of a much larger storm. Midnight ghosts over the desert. It began in silence, somewhere in the Indian Ocean, off a stretch of runway that most people have never heard of. The doors of fortified hangars rolled open. Out emerged the B-2 Spirit, sleek, black, and shaped like something from another world. Its engines whispered to life, and within minutes, it was airborne, heading northwest toward a land locked in conflict. This wasn't just another military flight. This was a message, wrapped in carbon fiber and cloaked in $2.2 billion of American engineering. Its destination, Yemen. Eyes in the sky, but no warning. By 2 a.m. local time, air defenses in northern Yemen were still, unaware that above them, at 15,000 meters, something was already watching. The B-2s had slipped through layers of contested airspace without triggering a single alarm. Iranian-supplied radar systems stood idle. Soviet-era detection arrays blinked dumbly. Nothing moved. The bombers had already refueled mid-air, a dangerous ballet in the sky, conducted in silence and darkness. Precision flight corridors, called restricted operating zones, had been carved through the sky to avoid the dozens of U.S. aircraft crisscrossing the region: F-18s, F-35s, Navy Growlers, B-1s, even Reaper drones. But in those zones, one rule dominated: stay out of the B-2's path. And then, they struck. Precision without mercy. The first wave hit Sada. Command centers, reinforced bunkers, anti-aircraft positions, underground communications hubs, 10 targets, vaporized in seconds. The weapons, GBU-31 JDAMs, 900-kilogram concrete-piercing smart bombs, guided by GPS and inertial navigation systems, so precise, they struck within 3 meters of their intended targets. So devastating, the buildings didn't collapse, they vanished. Iranian GPS jammers were active, but they didn't matter. These bombs don't rely on GPS alone. They know where they are in space, even if the sky goes blind. The science of invisibility. To understand the B-2's power, you have to understand how invisible it really is. Its radar cross-section? Just 0.1 square meters, smaller than a seagull. Compared to a standard fighter jet like the F-15, the B-2 is over 250 times harder to detect. It's not just the shape. Those smooth, curved edges deflect radar waves away at odd angles. It's not just the black paint. That paint is a classified blend of composites, iron particles, and absorption layers that soak up over 80% of incoming radar energy. And even if you do catch it on radar, it looks like weather. When bombs fall without warning. Back in the skies above Yemen, F-18s flew decoy patterns from the USS Truman, dropping smaller bombs to distract ground forces and stir movement. As the Houthis scrambled to react, the B-2s made their second run, this time GBU-38s. Smaller, 225-kilo warheads, still powerful enough to take out infrastructure, but designed to reduce collateral damage. Communications towers, relay stations, fuel depots. The explosions were surgical. The death toll? Still unconfirmed. But here's the twist. No Houthi missile ever fired back. They never saw the bombers. Never heard them. By the time the first explosions hit, the spirits were already turning toward their next targets. Smoke without fire, jets without echo. How do you stay invisible to radar and heat-seeking systems? You bury your engines deep inside the aircraft. You shape your exhaust into thin, flat channels. You cool the heat trails so thoroughly that even infrared-guided missiles can't get a lock. And the B-2 does all of this while flying at over 1,000 km/h. Its skin is more than just armor. It's a sensor array. Laser warning receivers, radar detectors, electromagnetic sensors. Together, they provide 360-degree awareness without giving away a signal. The B-2 never screams into battle. It glides like a shadow and leaves no trace, except for the burning remains on the ground. The billion-dollar bomb drop. Here's where it gets real. Each B-2 costs $2.2 billion to build. That's not a typo. It's one of the most expensive machines ever made. Each hour of flight costs around $150,000. Refueling alone adds $50,000 per tanker per hour. Every mission, like this one, involving multiple B-2s, can run into the tens of millions, even before a single bomb is dropped. Why do it? Because sometimes, the cost of not striking is higher. These missions aren't just military, they're economic weapons. Iranian-funded bunkers? Gone. Imported comms equipment? Vaporized. The financial toll of replacing it all? Staggering. It's not just a hit on the battlefield. It's a punch to the pocketbooks of foreign sponsors, the island no one talks about. Here's what few noticed. The B-2s didn't return to the US. They turned south, toward Diego Garcia. It's a tiny dot in the middle of the Indian Ocean, technically British, militarily American, and virtually invisible on the world's news. With a 3,600-meter runway, hardened bunkers, and total seclusion, it's the ideal launch pad. From here, B-2s can strike Yemen in 5.5 hours, half the time needed from Missouri. Less refueling, less risk, more readiness. Satellite images from June 2nd confirmed what some feared. 6 B-2s parked in formation. That's not a fluke. That's preparation. The Yemen strikes weren't a one-off. They were a rehearsal. Maybe the opening act of something larger. The bigger question. Deploying stealth bombers isn't just a tactical decision, it's a geopolitical message. To the Houthis, we can erase your weapons in seconds. To Iran, every act of escalation has a price. To allies, the US isn't retreating, it's upgrading. But at home, the questions grow louder. How many hospitals could a $150 million build? How many schools could run for a year on the cost of one sortie? That's the tightrope of modern power, projecting strength while managing the cost of empire. What happened over Yemen wasn't just a bombing run, it was a demonstration of the invisible hand of warfare. The B-2 spirit doesn't just defeat enemies, it outsmarts, outpaces, and outclasses them. As long as it flies from shadows like Diego Garcia, no enemy is truly out of reach. If this glimpse into unseen warfare stunned you, subscribe for more deep dives into the mysterious, the powerful, and the hidden forces shaping our world. Hit like, comment your thoughts, and turn on notifications. Because in the Oddiverse, the silence speaks volumes.